You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Paranormal Concept Show. And today is Tuesday, the 11th of April, 2017, and I'm joined tonight by Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Really well, thank you.
Good, good. Have you had a good week?
Very busy. You guys are keeping me very, very busy. But it's all good. Loving it.
It comes with the job, doesn't it?
Apparently so.
Oh, it's all good fun. Absolutely. So are you ready for the show tonight? Have you done your research?
I think so. I have researched this and I found it a fascinating subject. I think I've hit it from a slightly different angle to the one that you've come from, though.
Yeah, I'm going to hit it from a very devil advocates sort of way, because what we're talking about tonight is called the Mandela effect, and it's quite a new theory that's come out. And I first experienced it. It was someone that actually said to me, "Have you heard of the Mandela effect?" And I was like, "No, never heard of it before. What is it?" And she said the idea is that way back in the year 2000, allegedly, one of the conspiracy theories out there is that we was switched from the world we lived in to an alternate reality because our world was destroyed. So all the governments wanted us moved over onto another dimension to carry on our existence. And in doing so, they changed some of our history, because we've got new memories, apparently, as we went over to the new dimension, so to speak. And she fired a few questions at me, and she said, when can you remember when Nelson Mandela died?" And I was like, "Yeah, he died in the 90s, 93, I think." She said, "All right, so you remember him coming out of prison?" And I was like, "Yep, I remember that totally." And she said, "Well, apparently her sister remembers him dying in prison in the 80s, and it was actually televised, and they remember watching it on the telly." So there's like discrepancies in some of our history. So this is where it gives rise to the whole alternate reality sort of thing. And I thought, well, I'm going to look into this, and I found quite a lot of inconsistencies in what we think and what is actually true. There isn't much. I know there isn't much study that's been going on into this. I mean, as a skeptic, I can completely concur that it would be a case of false memory theory. But you know, this is how I came across this. This Mandela effect, they actually coined it because, mainly because of that incident with the whole "when did Nelson Mandela die?" Because that that's where I think it was a lady called what's her name now? I can't.
It's Fiona Broom.
Fiona Broom. That's
and
it.
this was back
Fiona
in
Broom.
2010, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she basically came up with the collective misremembering of a fact or event. And she named it, like you say, the Mandela effect. I'm not going to lie. I think this is complete bunkum.
Yeah, and it is mainly about.
Sorry, I know it's very baldly put, but yeah.
No, this was she called it that because of the Nelson Mandela situation, because that's what she experienced first of all.
Yeah, when I started looking into this, I was quite fascinated because there was quite a lot of different incidences. I have to be careful with that word. There's quite a lot of incidences where, you know, I mean, we talked about this in a very jokey fashion, didn't we, at one point? And you do sort of start looking and go, oh, yeah, I didn't think of it like that. But then when I actually started looking into it, it brought up a lot of concepts, a lot of ologies. That's all I can say. Yeah. A lot of ologies we ended up looking into for this one. And we're not scientists or ologists in any way, shape or form. And there were concepts that we were having to get our head around that were quite difficult, I suppose, in some respects, weren't they, Paul?
It was. And, yeah, I do, because my day job is working with the ambulances. And I know for a fact that if you attend a road traffic accident, for example, and you try and ask the bystanders what happened, if there's 10 bystanders, you'll probably get about 6 or 7 different versions of what actually happened.
Yeah.
So you never actually get the same story. And that is what false memory is all about, basically.
That's right.
It's just basically your memory recalls certain aspects of what happened, and then it sort of makes it logical to you. And it does. It puts false ideas into your head to make it a string of incidents that make up the whole story.
I remember watching an experiment on television, and what they did was it was a nightclub situation, and then they basically had like a gang go in and raid this nightclub with shotguns. And it was absolutely fascinating because, like you say, after the event, what they did was they went round and took witness statements from everybody. And there was only 5 people that actually was part of the raid gang. But from the witness statements, they could have pinned down about 20 people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was huge differences in the witness statements. And like you say, the brain itself invents facts to fill the gaps and will, like you say, give you this false memory. And it's, you know, it shows you how fickle, I suppose, the mind can be in regards to when you're under stress or when you're under pressure. Your brain will actually do that to fill the gaps that, you know, when something's happening really fast or, you know, the stress of those incidences, like you say, in an accident or in this experiment. Excuse me. You know, these things were, I didn't realise until I watched that experiment and then talking to you about, you know, witness statements and stuff like that, how the brain does do that. I didn't realise that. And like I say, it just shows you really how kind of unreliable it is.
It is. It just makes it up to make your day more interesting.
Yeah, well,
I know exactly. One of the incidents that this was it. What's her name? Fiona.
Fee.
What she was talking about. Yeah, that lady. She was talking about the incident at Tiananmen Square, and there was a protester standing in the way of the tank.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people claim that the guy was run over, but then there's other people that say that he wasn't.
Okay.
So, you know, that's sort of, again, another discrepancy in our history.
I think the problem with that one is that's a very iconic photograph.
Absolutely. And I also think as well that there are some aspects of the history that's taught in schools that are it's almost like brushing the truth under the carpet just to change some of our history or the way that it's perceived, if that makes sense.
I know what you're saying on that one. I don't think, though, that... Oh, dear, that's a difficult one to think about. I don't think that the schools would be part of this Mandela effect. I'll be honest with you. I don't think...
No, I don't think it's done as a Mandela effect thing. I think it's sort of... It can... it's almost like propaganda. It can sort of brainwash you into trying to be better and improve yourself. And I think that's what some governments are trying to do. I mean, in particular, World War... I mean, when you see films on World War I and II, particularly when the Americans joined England in one of the, the biggest wars, the American school system will say that the Americans won and played a big part in winning, but they didn't join till the end.
Yeah.
So how can they turn around and say they won? Because
I actually don't think it's so much of a school thing. I think it might even... I think if you're looking at it from a media-driven or a society-driven thing, it's more, I would say, films. A lot of people seem to get their facts from films these days. The amount of people after Pearl Harbor watching the film, not the event, kind of now think, or actually Saving Private Ryan, those kind of films, they kind of take their history from those kind of films. Do you know what I mean? And even the old black and white films. I mean, obviously, if it's made by British people, they are going to put a very... We're amazing, we coped with it, we had a cup of tea and we solved it by morning, kind of stiff upper lip. And the Americans always come and save the day. I mean, I talk about this film quite a bit.
That's the same sort of thing as well, because I just think... I don't think it's something malicious or anything. It's just, it's almost like the Americans want to display the Americans as, coming in and saving the day because they want to be... They want to be better than everyone else. Well, maybe not all of them, but do you know what I mean? They want to be the best.
There's a very gung-ho, we can save the day, we can do it attitude from the Americans. From the British, it's a very stiff upper lip. It's very,
brush
very
ourselves
dignified.
off.
We'll get up. We will overcome, but we'll do it in a very dignified and stiff-backed way. And like I say, we'll have a cup of tea and it'll all be fine.
Absolutely, we're very good at that.
We are incredibly good at that, and we are awesome.
Yeah.
But I still don't think that relates to the Mandela effect. I think that creates a false history, but I don't think it creates a false memory, which is, I think it's two different things. It's almost like a perception of history. But these things that we're talking about is like, I mean, I asked you a question the other day, and I did this to quite a few people.
Yeah.
Regarding the Kennedy assassination. Now, how many people were in the car? The Kennedy assassination car. How many people were in it?
Because I've looked into this and done a show on it before.
So you know this, don't you?
There were 6 people.
There were 6 people. But there's a lot of people out there that think there were only 4 people in the car.
Yep.
A lot of people. Now, if you watch the footage of the newsreel, it clearly shows 6 people in the car.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, and I've got to remember this. This is memory, so I could be wrong. Didn't the Oliver Stone film only have 4 people in the car?
It could have done, and I was about to suggest that, actually. I don't know, to be honest. I've not actually seen that film.
No, I haven't, but that's the sort of thing I mean by but people remember it slightly differently. Now, whether or not that was a media-driven thing or whether or not that is a false memory that people just assumed that there was just 4 people in the car, I don't know. I would doubt that Oliver Stone would get a fact like that wrong. I'll be honest with you, because he was very, very good with... it's one of my favourite ever films. Just putting that out there. Love that film. But it's those sort of things that could possibly create this false memory. So people think that it's a fact.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, we was talking the other night about the Titanic.
Yeah,
and I was talking about the film in relation to true facts.
Yes.
And there were certain things that wasn't on the movie.
Yes.
That really happened.
Yeah.
And I think if someone looked at that movie and then listened to me talk about the facts and figures and everything else that was going on, they might think, well, you know, you've got a different memory of it than what I have, because I've only seen the film. I've not studied it. So I think, you know, the media and stuff do have a lot to play in this whole false memory scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, a lot of people, it's almost like taking, particularly when they take things like the D-Day landings or Titanic or, you know, things, you know, Apollo 13, they will take those as that is their learning of history. Do you know what I mean? Even down to the Enfield haunting. When you look at the Enfield haunting, now, they did the mini-series on TV, didn't they?
Yep.
And then they did the film, The Conjuring.
Yep.
And if you go by The Conjuring film, you don't know anything about that case whatsoever, because that is not what happened. And even the mini-series, although that was a lot more accurate-ish, I would want to say, it still had a drama take on it.
Yeah. And the whole, I mean, I've not seen the TV series, but only the Conjuring film, best comedy of 2016.
I talked all the way through that movie. I was like, I can't even be bothered to watch this.
I was laughing all the way through that movie, really. I think other people got annoyed. But it was like the basement scenes. You know, the house didn't have a basement.
Yep.
But I only know that because I've been to the house.
Yeah.
So I know the location, you know, and I think sometimes the American filmmakers are obsessed with basements anyway. And
they love a basement.
They do, don't they? And attics. I was watching a film the other night and it had an attic in it.
But I think in America, a lot of houses do actually have like walk-in attics. I mean, you can't even stand up straight in my attic. And most houses in America, from my understanding, and I haven't been to America or into any of the houses in America, so I could be completely wrong on this, but I think they do actually have a lot of basements. Do you know what I mean? So from their perspective, why wouldn't that be the same in the UK?
Exactly. And I think this is going to be where a lot of the false memory comes from, media and real life, and people just getting mixed between the two. Yeah. I mean, this film that I watched last night, it was called The Disappointments Room. The whole film was a disappointment, to be fair. It was rubbish.
You're such a critic. You're such a critic.
I won't go in too much into it, but it was basically this woman. She was haunted in a new house, and it turned out that there was a room that wasn't on the plans to the house. And when she finally got into the room, it turned out that they called it a disappointments room. So when you had children that were disabled and stuff way back in the, I don't know, the American Civil War type era, you'd put them in a room to hide them away.
How awful.
Yeah, I know. And it was basically the spirits of that room and how she was mistreated and stuff, and you know, that's sort of where the film went. I mean, there's a bit more to it than that, but I don't want to ruin it for anyone if they do want to watch it. But I was severely disappointed with that film. But that's me.
Name me a film you haven't been severely disappointed in. Actually, I have got a film that you haven't been severely disappointed in.
What's that?
Star Wars, because apparently there's a Mandela effect in Star Wars.
There is, actually, yeah. And to be honest, I didn't even notice that one.
Blimey.
I know. The apparently the Mandela effect scenario in Star Wars is with one of the androids, C-3PO, and it's basically about what colour he is. So what colour would you say C-3PO is? I mean, I know you looked into it anyway, but
before I looked into it,
yeah,
I would have said all gold. I would have said he's gold.
Well, no, he's not. He's got the left. No, is it what side was it? The right bottom leg, bottom part of his leg was silver, and in the films, it's always portrayed as that. And I've actually watched all the films to check.
I love that. I've actually had to rewatch the films to check that.
Absolutely, and yes, it's in there, a silver leg. It's definitely one to look out for. But everyone remembers it being him all gold.
Yeah.
And I do think it's, again, with the media and everything, and even down to the merchandise that Star Wars brought out, he's always been all gold.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a case of that detail was so small in the movie that people didn't notice.
Yeah.
And gold and silver, I mean, they do sort of look the same when it's dark. And most of the film's in space, and it's dark. So it's sort of
But
like...
you're not really looking at his legs. I mean, to be fair, you're not really focusing on his legs, are you?
No,
because it's all his upper body, isn't it, really?
Exactly.
And
there's so much other bits and pieces to be looking at.
Exactly. And there's another point in that film as well. Now, this is a point that I wanted to talk about with you regarding this. Because when there's that big fight scene... Now, I'm not a Star Wars expert, so please forgive me, all you Star Wars fans out there. Between the guy who can't breathe properly...
Darth Vader.
That's the one. And the young whippersnapper geezer.
Luke Skywalker.
And that's him. When they have that big fight at the end, and there's the father, I'm your father.
Yep.
Everyone thinks it says, Luke, I'm your father.
Yep.
And he doesn't. He doesn't say that.
No, you're right. He doesn't say that.
He says, no, I'm your father.
That is correct.
And that's been put down to a Mandela effect.
Yep, I watched it the other night. So yes, that's correct.
See, now that...
I don't actually know where that one come from.
What, Luke, I'm your father?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it makes more sense. That's the other thing I thought about with these, is that sometimes your brain will make something to make more sense of something. You will automatically make more sense of something if it doesn't kind of fit right. Does that make sense? So like if you say something grammatically incorrect or someone says something, in your brain you sort of almost like rejig it to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened with this, because there's one in Snow White as well, isn't there? Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yes, there is, yeah.
She doesn't say mirror, mirror. She says magic mirror on the wall. And again,
she does.
But mirror, mirror fits better. It rhymes better.
Yeah, I don't know where that one sort of changed.
No, but see, these have been put down to this alleged Mandela effect. But I just think it's just how the brain is working.
Yeah, I do. I think it is a case of false memory. And as I said about the incident with the car earlier on in the show, it was like, the brain, it's almost like it takes pictures every so often, and then it just, in between, it fills in the gaps to make it logical. And I think that's where that idea comes from. Especially in films. I mean, you've got loads of them. The one in Forrest Gump, for example, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But the line was actually, life was like a box of chocolates.
But that is just like one word. How can you say that's a Mandela effect? If that is a collective misremembering, I would say it's because of how society is set up. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Makes more sense than life was like a box of chocolates.
To be honest, I've never really understood that line anyway. Life is like a box of chocolates, right? You go to the shops and you buy a box of roses, celebrations, or whatever, and you get that little card that tells you what all the chocolates
context. Now you do.
Now the cards are stacked.
No, but back in, what was that, 1960s, wasn't it? It was supposed to have been set in when he was sitting on that bench.
I don't know. Have roses been going that long, and have they always done that little card?
No, but I think back in the day of when that particular scene was set, it probably wasn't a little card with, writing on it of what it was. Probably like a potluck, I'm assuming. I don't know my chocolate history.
And then,
one thing I
to be fair, what chocolates is he talking about? I mean, if you buy a box of Maltesers, know they're all going to be
don't you?
Exactly. So it's just a rubbish line, to be fair. I just don't...
Here we go. Film critics come out again.
That line makes no sense. It's just rubbish.
Oh my God. I love how we're back into film critiquing on one line, on one scene that was supposed to happen back in the 1970s, and everyone's going, this one word change is down to the Mandela effect, which is to do with collective misremembering in the collective consciousness or unconsciousness or one of them.
And it was a pointless line.
And it was actually, really? Are you really using that as an example for this phenomena that you're saying is, the Mandela one? I kind of understand that, because I tell you where I am with the actual incident that started this, the Nelson Mandela situation, is everybody, and I don't mean this cruelly, expected Nelson Mandela to pass in prison.
Yeah.
No, everybody. It kind of never ever thought we'd see the day when Nelson Mandela was released. It just was one of those things, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
think
think that's probably what caused that false memory, I suppose you want, if.
Yeah, I mean, I was
because the expectation was there.
Yeah, again, it could have been, or see, I was too young to experience it when it came out. But I actually do remember on the news that he was released from prison.
Yeah, I remember watching it.
Because I was a kid, I wasn't really interested. So it was like, oh yeah, Nelson Mandela's out. Okay, what to do? I'm going to go down the park and play with mates. But that was the extent of it. So was there a big thing happening when he came out of prison? Did he have an escort?
Oh God, yeah.
So it was a big deal. So maybe
it was a huge celebration going on.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So maybe that's
it was a huge historical event when he got released from prison. Because, like I say, most people, and again, keep it in context of the era that happened in. It was 1983, wasn't it? He was released. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think so. It was about that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was 1983. Yeah, when he was released at that time, it was a huge deal because of what he had been fighting against and what he'd been put in prison for. And I'm not condoning some of the things that happened, but all I'm saying is the expectation was out there that he would never ever be released. In a very similar way to the Berlin Wall, we never expected that to come down. Do you know what I mean? So when he was released, it was a massive deal. I mean, there were songs about freeing Nelson Mandela and everything. Do you know what I mean? It was a big movement.
So I think maybe that's where this misconception comes from then, because if they thought maybe he had died, or misheard the news report and thought he died, and then see that, they could then think that it could have been his funeral.
Yeah, so maybe there's that jump. So like that happened in the 1980s, and then when he finally passed, they sort of like missed the bit out where he was in retirement in his villa. Do you know what I say? Villa? I don't know. I think it was a safe house kind of situation, wasn't it, for a while?
I would have thought so.
I think it was. They kind of like, because he went really quiet. Once he got released, big celebrations, the whole country, woohoo! And then he went very quiet, and he sort of stepped out of the political field as we know it. Do you know what I mean? Because he was an old man. So, it must have broken his spirit a little bit, I would have thought, the prison years. And he kind of went quiet, from my understanding. And this is just a very naive, not really... I was probably out partying when all this happened, so I didn't follow the news particularly much then. But
because you're a lot older than me, so...
I'm not a lot older than you. Cheeky. That's very cheeky. Gosh, I'll start calling you Mark Manley soon. I think I'm a few years older than you.
I wouldn't be as cruel as he is to you. I know you do your research, it's fine.
Thank you. But he kind of stepped out of the public forum, I suppose, in general, if you're just going about in the UK, bearing in mind this is all happening in South Africa. Do you know what I mean? So he wasn't in the forefront. And because there's that gap of the build-up to him being released and then not a lot going on, and then he passes, it's almost like maybe people like missed, that part. And they remember his funeral and they've just linked it to the prison. So do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe
I do think that as well.
rather than it being a collective misremembering, and it's a specific phenomena. I mean, the more I looked into this, the more there were some crazy theories.
There's loads of crazy theories.
There's some crazies, and there's some really good psychological ones. Now, should we take a little break and then talk about that when we come back?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go for it.
should we do that?
Yeah, press the button.
Okay.
You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
Sort it. And welcome back. We are joined with Kerry Greenaway, and we're discussing what is known as the Mandela effect. Now, the Mandela effect is basically small inconsistencies in our history and films, media, and such like. And Kerry, you was talking about the false memory of Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it was.
I do agree with you, to be honest. I do think that it was a case of Nelson Mandela coming out of prison, and just I think a lot of people would just see that and not really take in what was going on, and then a few years down the line they just forgot and then thought he'd died anyway, and that could have been his funeral, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
looking
sort of
back.
like just like, again, almost like we said, the false memory, we sort of make it fit in our brain to what feels right. And because there was that expectation of him living his days out in prison back in the day, it sort of like misses the years that he actually was released in society, you know, I suppose. I mean, the psychological side of this is absolutely fascinating, because this is what I found out in regards to, I mean, we touched on this at the beginning of the show in regards to how your brain fills the gaps. Yeah. And so I looked into, now I'm not an ologist, so all you ologists out there, please don't start bashing your head against the computer screen, because I'm getting this a little bit simplified. But I looked into memory, how memory is stored. And I found this quite interesting. Now, memory... again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm not an ologist. Now, memory is created in two ways. Okay, so you get your first impact memory, and then you get like a secondary memory where your brain. So your first impact is like what you first see, what you first take in, and then and it's seconds. Okay, it's split seconds. And then you get like a second memory where your brain is like actually taking in more information. And the first impact memory is where your fight or your flight kicks in. Now, okay. I heard about an analogy to do with this. It's like, right, so you're walking along in the grass and you see what you think is a snake in the grass. And the first instinct is your fight or your flight.
Yep.
But then your second memory thing takes in the fact that it isn't actually a snake, it's actually a stick that looks like a snake in the grass.
Yeah.
So you've got like a double memory thing going on. You've got like a double layer going on all the time in your brain, particularly in, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, high stress situations.
Yeah.
Because obviously a snake is a fearful thing, so it creates that fight or that flight. Now, once that's happened, it then gets stored to the long-term memory. Now, the physical location of the memory is an engram or memory trace, and it gets transferred from the temporary sites to the prefrontal cortex. I love these terms.
That's it.
But when it gets stored into the prefrontal cortex, it actually gets stored, memories that have got similar traits get stored together. So if you hear a song on the radio, then your memory will pull up the incidences that relate to that song. That's why you get those memories when you hear a song being played, because your brain is connecting that song with that memory.
Well, that makes sense.
And it's because it's all stored together. So your memory remembers the song, then it remembers where you've heard that song. And the more you hear that song, the more different memories will start occurring when you've heard that song.
Yeah.
Because they're all stored in a similar place in your brain.
Mm.
So
I'm a bit like that
confusing.
with music.
It's a very, very strange filing system.
It is, isn't it?
It's not time. It's not like time, is it? It's sort of a bit of, oh, well, that's a bit like that, so I'll stick that with that.
Yeah.
So I just find that a little bit of a strange storage system for memories. I understand why it does it, because it's also linked to emotion as well. So if you feel a certain emotion, that's why you get behavioural traits, because if you end up in a similar situation, you'll start reacting in a specific way because of the memory association that it had, because of how it resonated with how it happened before. So that behavioural pattern was set in place.
See, I'm a bit like that with the movies in particular, because I do see a lot of films, and if I hear a song come up on the radio that's attached to a film that's been out years and years and years, it's like, okay, yeah, I can tell you exactly what film that was.
Yeah.
And and so I can understand that way of thinking.
And if that's how it happens, then you kind of understand how it can get a little bit wrong.
Yeah, of course.
How the memory can get it wrong.
Yeah, if it's filing it with another incident that happened to you before, then it could explain why sometimes you might get the facts wrong to the incident you just experienced to one you had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And they could overlap to fill in the gaps, I suppose.
And
so,
if
yeah,
a lot of people, if a lot of people are doing that on like day-to-day basis in regards to like big events like the Mandela situation, for example, then, see, now I'm going to go into a bit of a crazy.
Okay.
What it could do...
There's no such thing as crazy on this show.
Oh, well, this is true, and it probably isn't. I'll probably be slapped by certain people if I put this out there, but...
Well, as long as it's nothing to do with demons, you're fine.
It's not demons.
That's fine. Cool.
On this show, we're not discussing demons at all. But what it could do is if enough people remember it in a certain way, it could then put that imprint into the collective consciousness or the uncollective consciousness, whatever it be, that consciousness. So then that becomes sort of like the collective misremembering.
Yeah, it does.
Possibly. It's a theory. It's a little
Absolutely.
theory. I think that's just as good a theory as the parallel universe that happened in 2000. I think that's a very bizarre way of looking at it.
People do have an influence on other people. So, again, going back to that incident, car accident or something with 10 witnesses, if you don't talk to the witnesses individually, they can influence what each other saw as well.
Yeah, well, we have that in the paranormal field, because when you hear something, it's almost like you don't want to say, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Because you want somebody else to say it, because you don't want to put something in somebody's head that wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it is a difficult one, that one.
It is, and I mean, that sort of situation happened to me when I first started doing the paranormal work. I witnessed all I can describe as like a white shadow moving behind someone, and as it came round the side of them, it fell to the floor and set them alight in blue flame. And I know I've told the story loads of times, but I actually turned around to the group I was with and I said, I can see something, but I don't know what it is. And that's all the information that I put out into the room. And another guy come forward and he said, yeah, I can see something as well, and it's blue fire. So what I was seeing, it basically confirmed it for me that I was seeing exactly the same as what he was.
Yeah.
But if I had turned around and said, well, yeah, I can see some blue fire, other people could have also turned around and said, well, yeah, I can see it as well.
Yeah, because then you've got that...
See, basically I would have thought that I was influencing other people.
Yeah, that is a known thing, isn't it? Where you know, particularly in that circumstance, where you go, did you see that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And then one goes, oh, yeah. And then there's that one person who thinks, no, didn't hear that.
Especially in audio phenomena as well. You know, you get all these on the telly and they go, oh, yeah, you know, we're going to play you a bit of proof that we caught this on video, on audio tape, and we're going to have it subtitled at the bottom. Well, that annoys me because they're telling you what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And that sort of annoys me because then it's like, did they put that? They suggested it to me, so that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. It's like, that's audio pareidolia sort of situation, isn't it? It's like when you play a song backwards and it's supposed to have words when you play it backwards. Unless somebody pointed out to you, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I saw a scientist up on the stage demonstrating exactly that. And he was saying who heard words in that, and they picked out one or two, like the audience was picking out one or two words that they heard with the song being played backwards. And then he said, right, I'm now going to play it and I'm going to put the words underneath it and then you'll hear it.
Mm.
And
well, there was a guy on Facebook it was, and I do believe, and I could be wrong, that it was Kev Kerr.
Okay.
And he demonstrated that the voice box that most paranormal investigators use, and using audio pareidolia, is a bit of a rubbish phenomenon.
Was that the orange?
He got the orange and he drew a little face on it.
It was Kev Kerr.
And he put it on a glass, right? And he had the voice box going as well.
It was
and he's like, "Can you tell me what your name is?" And then over the radio, it's like Bob, and it's like,
honestly,
okay, so Bob the Orange.
It was so funny, guys. Check that out. I know he put that on the ASAP Facebook page because it really, really did highlight this audio pareidolia, kind of what we're talking about at this moment in time. I know we've moved off the subject a little bit of the Mandela effect, but it's worth watching. Kev Kerr, he put this up on the ASAP Facebook page, so check that out because it really does demonstrate.
It was funny.
It was incredibly funny. He ate Bob at the end
I
of
know.
it.
That's why Bob was haunting the room.
I know. Spoilers. Sorry, everybody, if you haven't seen it. Spoilers. But no, Kev, I thought that was a really good demonstration of it.
It was. And sort of going on from audio phenomena, listed in some of the Mandela effects phenomena, you have got a song by Queen, "We Are the Champions."
Yeah.
Do you actually remember how the last three words of that song?
We are the champions? No, of the world. It says of the world, doesn't it?
No.
What?
No.
Really?
A lot of people think it is, but it isn't.
It should be.
It just says no time for losers because we are the champions, and that's it.
It doesn't go.
It finishes
of the
with
world at the end.
No.
Really?
Yep. Go back, listen to it.
I'm going to have to now.
If we had a music license, we could have actually put it out, but no. That it stops with "We Are the Champions."
Nah, it does. It goes. I'm not going to sing it again. You've already had a little bit of my dulcet tones. I'm not going to go there again. But okay. No, I'm going to go back and listen to that now.
Do you know what I did when I read that as well? I listened to it, and it does actually end with "We Are the Champions."
Okay.
Yeah, in the song, again, I can understand why people think it is of the world. Because in the song and the chorus, it does actually say, "We are the champions of the world."
It should say it then. That's all I'm saying.
So,
that would have finished the song off better.
Yeah, but
I might write to Queen actually and tell them to put that on the end.
Yeah, I'm sure they get a voice box and Freddie Mercury could finish it off.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be perfect.
That would. Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that was quite a good link into the music there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And even board games is another one that has been affected by the Mandela effect. Now, I haven't got any pictures. Obviously, because it's a radio show and podcast, we can't actually put pictures out there. But Professor Moneybags from Monopoly, do you think he had a monocle?
Yes.
Well, apparently not. He doesn't have a monocle.
Really?
Really. There's no monocle in the diagram whatsoever. So you'll have to look that image up. Yep. That's one for you.
Well, I'm going to have to...
Yeah.
That's all I can say to that one. He should have a monocle. Again, it fits better with him with a monocle. The marketing people missed a trick.
One for parents of small children that watch Curious George. Has Curious George got a towel?
I don't know who Curious George is.
Curious George is a monkey.
Sorry, excuse me.
Curious George is a monkey. I see, because I don't have children. It's like I didn't know this character was personally, but my godson's knew. So it's like Curious George. Did the monkey have a tail?
Well, I don't know who Curious George is, but I'm going to go with yes. Obviously, he's a monkey.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
No, Curious George does not have a tail. See, I didn't know Curious George was either, to be honest.
But like when you say monkey, monkeys have tails, so I think
that's what I thought as well. But no,
so I would think that logically, I think that's where logic kicks in.
Yeah,
because logically, like with the Moneybags guy, logically it fits the stereotype. I think is the point. It fits the stereotype for a bank manager to have like the top hat and tails and the monocle from going back in the day, and like a monkey, your immediate mental image of a monkey has a tail.
Yeah, but no, it doesn't in the cartoon apparently. Mickey Mouse, does he have braces?
No,
that's why he doesn't.
Thank
a
you.
lot of people do think he does because he's got the two buttons on the front of his shorts.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people do picture him with the braces that go over as well. But no, he doesn't. No. Apparently, a lot of people think that the Mona Lisa is now smiling, where she used to be emotionless.
No, she has an enigmatic smile.
See, I don't see... Yeah, it's not like a major full-on smile, but I don't see the difference.
It's almost like a mini, pouty, smirky kind of expression. And she's tiny. She is actually tiny, everybody.
Yeah, I know. It's a small painting.
It's a small painting, isn't it?
Yeah, I did know that.
I was a bit disappointed, to be fair.
Even the Venus de Milo's a bit of a disappointment as well. I was expecting a massive big statue and it ain't. Yeah. It's always bigger on the telly.
I think it's because they do close-up shots, so it really doesn't look... you get that false image of it being a huge painting, and then when you see it, you go, oh, is that it?
Exactly. Kit Kats, do they have a dash in the middle? Kit dash cat, or is it just Kit Kat?
Kit Kat without dash.
Yeah. A lot of people believe that there is a dash. Personally, I don't care.
I was going to say, really?
Some of these are really petty, and it's like that, Kit Kat with the dash or without the dash.
And
Does
is
it
that
matter?
really a true example of a collective misremembering of a fact or an event? I mean, the things they're pulling out
I think what it is just
very insignificant, in my opinion.
I can understand in respect of that the logo is different, so that it's the representation of the company. So I think it's more to do with the logo as opposed to the actual product. But for me, it's too small a detail to worry about.
Yeah.
To be honest, if we are living in an alternate reality, I want to go back because this one's pretty bad at the moment for most people.
Well, yeah, but the other one might be even worse. So unless you're living in unless you get to pick and choose.
Yeah, with the yeah.
That's not how it works, is it? You can't just go, I'm going to whip over to the other parallel universe and see how that is, and then if I don't like that, it's even worse than this one, I'll pop back.
Absolutely. But I mean, if you go online, there's loads of different logos and things like that. I mean, they're using a Coca-Cola one. Apparently, the Coca-Cola logo has changed.
Yeah, but advertisers within large companies do reinvent their logo. So although it's exactly the same logo, they will modernise it for the times, like
Absolutely,
the shape
but
of
they
the
don't.
Coca-Cola bottle, and I mean, you're seeing more dramatic marketing effects these days.
I think with the Coca-Cola one, I believe it was on the sea, at the top of the sea. They had like a little squiggle, and then they didn't, and it was like, which one's more the one you know?
It's the one without.
Yeah, that's the one I know. But
that's
apparently
not
a lot of people think he's got this little squiggle, and I'm like, really?
No.
Why? No, it's just silly. Misspelling names as well. Oscar Mayer. I don't even know that company.
No, I don't know
So
that company.
I think it might be an American company, possibly.
Probably.
But they misspell it. A lot of people misspell it.
But
They
that's
put
just a name variation or a saying variation. And
So-
this is very similar to the mirror, mirror, magic mirror thing and the no, I'm your father, Luke, I'm your father thing. It's just a variation, and it's a distortion. People will, like I said before, will naturally distort things to fit better in their brain because it sounds better or it works better.
Absolutely.
That's
I
all this is. I wouldn't say this is... The more I looked into this, the more I really, really did think that this isn't an actual phenomenon. This is just a combination of different things that when you're questioned on it, like you say, the Mickey Mouse thing. Yeah. I mean, there is an episode, very, very, very early episode, isn't there, which was the Jumping Jack one or something. It's called something like that. I'm sure the chat room is going to go crazy naming it. But... the other thing is when you create your memory, if you're distracted whilst so something like that on the telly, so say those Mickey Mouses were being shown on the telly.
Yeah.
If you're being distracted, like by your kids playing up or you're doing dinner or something like that, it can distort that memory of what it was.
Absolutely. And I did actually read somewhere, and I think this could be one of these future Mandela effect, or put down to the Mandela effect. The company that does the donuts, Krispy Kreme.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to change their name for the UK market because a lot of people mispronounce the creme. Some people call it cream. So in the UK, they're now going to be called Krispy Kreme, and they're going to spell it cream as opposed to creme. So I think that sort of thing will, in the future, if someone forgets that article that I read, in the future they go, well, look, it's changed its logo. Yeah, and I think that could be pretty much the same. I mean, the Oscar Mayer, I mean, I don't know it because it's not a UK company, but in the US, maybe they've got the same sort of thing. I mean, if it's completely through the American country and in Mexico, for example, they might have changed it for the local dialect. So again, that sort of makes sense to me. And to have the two logos and then go, well, look, they've changed it. Well, yeah, of course they have, but they're putting it down to this Mandela effect.
No, I see. I just think I agree with you on this one. Marketing and advertising people will tweak their approach over the years. And if it's a long-running company, the same logo will go through reinventions. So the main bulk of it is the same, but there will be small differences, like taking out the squiggle above the C on the Coke, and the cream to cream, the creme to cream and stuff like that. And I think that's not a Mandela effect. That's just age. Yeah. Whether or not you remember it or not. Do you know what I mean? It's an age thing. And memory does become distorted over time. I mean, some of my childhood memories, when I talk to my mum and dad, they go, well, that didn't happen like that, or that never happened. Now, I know certain things happened. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They don't remember it at all. But that's just because, for me, it might have had more of a significant situation than it did for them. I mean, and obviously they've lived a lot longer. They've got a lot more memory storage stored in there. Do you know what I mean? So I think there is a huge distortion of memory. I mean, even like I said, you put a high pressure situation onto it, your memory distorts. You ask somebody 5 minutes after an incident what happened, and they will distort the facts at that point. Ask them 5 days later or 2 weeks later. Isn't there a length of time that the actual memory of the incident then becomes unreliable, because it's known that the memory will change? You will change that. You will, like you say, we'll fill the gaps ourselves. And that's kind of what I think this Mandela effect is really. I mean, there was one, and we're running out of time again, but there was one I want to talk about a crazy, because it was quite funny. I thought the parallel universe was quite a crazy, but another one I found was about a glitch in the Matrix. Now, if that's not straight off the TV, like the films, I don't know what is. A glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I did read that one today actually, and I thought, really, let's go and find a different story.
I know, but I kind of want to do the Keanu Reeves bend over backwards to dodge bullets moment.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm going to download. What was it? I said I was going to write a book on earlier. Oh, the Bible. That was it. I'm going to write a book on the Bible. I'm going to download the Bible, and then I'm going to rewrite it.
Well, that would be really interesting. Your take on, oh my goodness, that's a whole controversial subject you've just brought up there.
Absolutely, I'm gonna rewrite it so everyone can understand it. And yeah,
I think it has been done like that.
It probably has.
Of the Bible.
I've actually got a book, and I've read it loads of times, and I absolutely love the version of it. It's the Bible according to Spike Milligan.
Oh my goodness.
That is absolutely hilarious, and if you're easily insulted, don't read it. But
yes, Spike Milligan was very good at insulting people.
It was really funny.
I'm sure it was. It's a bit like Bill Bryson's Guide to History.
Yeah, and yeah. So I don't know. So how long have we got left of the show?
We've got about 3 minutes to go, but I have to say, I'm going to reiterate on this one. I think the Mandela effect is bunkum. As I said that at the beginning of the show, I think it's bunkum. I think it can be explained for several different reasons. And I don't think it's an actual real-life phenomenon. And if anybody knows anything different, then please educate me. But from all the examples we found about this alleged phenomenon, I kind of was like, well, you can explain that. You can find a logical explanation for it without going into parallel universes or matrix glitches.
Yeah, I think they are quite far-fetched explanations, but I do like them. They are so amusing. But no, I totally agree. I think it's a case of false memory. Everyone remembers something different about different incidences, and when we've got Facebook and Twitter and all that sort of media going on about different TV shows and things like that. I mean, TV shows and films both change their names for different countries as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a mixture of all that, and it just filters through, and we get the wrong facts. That's all I think that the Mandela effect is. To be honest with you, I don't think it is a genuine phenomena other than false memory.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't think it's like I said, a huge phenomenon that Fiona Broome is, was sort of thinking. She was sort of trying to put a paranormal spin on it, wasn't she? Almost.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking that with this at all.
No, I mean, fine to look into the whole phenomena of false memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's where she needs to concentrate.
But that's a psychological thing.
Absolutely.
Not a paranormal thing.
No.
So you debunked this, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Debunked. Throw it away.
Yeah, that's okay. Right, well, you have got 30 seconds, mister, to wrap this show up.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining me in the chat room tonight. It's been an absolutely fantastic show as always. Thank you to Kerry Greenaway for joining me on tonight's show, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to rattle on for an hour. And I hope everyone has a fantastic Easter. And I shall see you all back here on the next Paranormal Concepts show.
You certainly will. Thank you very much, and good night.
Good night, everybody.
You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.